么跟上去做，妈妈也当军做上，都叫给现在大大亲家了，都是一当过来了。那个你呀，大家们上去就能出去就能了，上就完了，那你说。大概确切界别上那些，找了培训上进出发说，上学就能出去就能，上学完了当年小农界大概确切界别上那，老培训上进出发说，上学就能出去就能了，上学完了当年小农，大概确切界别上那些，找了上进出发说，那么他也看到了，那些跟出发他们也看到了，那话跟着那就，上学给到大概确定。多年前送到这个了，确实的，刚才的这个上那边对对讲，说完的时候也能看着说，我老说他对人个这样，我南东中去说的还讲搞不凶，但是他桥没打把车的，各地用下口嘛了，他那张在地里。대화진조파주장이 류된 제바제 토 대장마체 디링하는 저 자토래야 되니 추 하장가 자천번 장가라마 종가바 준비 이제 나이 추봉 지치 예동의 저자 차 장원된디게 니 상추 랑리 첸모 세와데 니가 저 천리 지비게 니 겨와서 뭐 대충한테 당가 저 처법병원에 있는다 내법병원에 있는데 당체 센데 개체도 많이 봐 다 세심하게 쳐도 정말 잘되래. 근데 장린디 돌레다 지라로 수수기 샤와 차차 총소 몸부 요래데 다 레칼레케 몸부 요래데 디나게 드링 맞추기 샤와인데 레칸데 최den길 샤와선한다 최다 딘비게 아니 레카치 차되래. 근데 아니 샤와 나오게 아니 샤와 피도 쇼와 메도 쇼와 다 드리지 차되래스 다티니 대답이다 말죠. 이제 총가바 집에 랑리 쳔무 게다 다 동해 지에 상비게 카톨레야다 시이 동해 상바텔레야 나 가이 동해 상발라 나 나이 동해 상발라 나 어다 대체 쇼차지 다티니 치 동해 상바 치 동해 상바텔레야 아니 치 동해 상취텔레야 강안도 어다 강해디 창르리 다치 동해 다 상출텔레야 나데 다 담보 가르레세나 롱셰 두바 표소 초바다 저와 아세지리 다 네바데 잔지 두바 표소 초바다 저와다 니 코두바 표소 초바다 저와다 송 르두바 표소 초바다 저와다 예 치이체 두메다 이메다 잡아 놓았다 아 어다 템리게 치 두메 주세 땡아 이게 돈이 치와서 telle야 두메 어텔이 여바 산도네 니 치와리야 네반 중고 요레스 어텔 다 대양이 상니 텐치 자마인바 니 자마인바 생게 띠네야 니 치이 동해 때려야 니 녀반 중에 상노 삼바 상노 세난다 삼바 세난다 로 니지 생게 띠네야 녀반 중에 되게 해 모용 거 봐도 강고래서 대송거래 대나라 이슈와 마주지 받아 양다 양 삼바오 때 어다 때려야 되니 다 담보 랑셰 두바 표성 소바다 자와서 가르레세나 다 디바치 주이나 도텐랍다
That's okay. Okay. That's okay. So Geshe-la just started his class. So he initiated that today we are it is a very good and it is delightful that we all gathered together here. We all have these qualities, or we all took birth as a human being with the qualities of leisures, 8 qualities of leisures and 10 qualities of opportunities, like human being with the leisures and opportunity qualities. And that is shows that even though the death is impermanent and we don't know when we will pass away, but still today we got an opportunity to with such a human birth, with having the relations and quality of relations and opportunity with such a quality, we are able to get a teaching, we are able to learn the teachings of Lama Tsongkhapa and Lama Tsongkhapa, the path to enlightenment, where all the 84,000 teachings of Buddha was summarized, and it is like main concept was taught in this text. So it is a great opportunity for the listeners and speaker for to get such an opportunity to get such an opportunity even for the listeners to receive the teachings of Lama Tsongkhapa with having the such a like summarize of 84,000 of teachings of Buddha, and also the speaker to get such an opportunity to give teaching on this. So all these things are for the for our, not only for this life but also but mean for the next life, for attaining the betterment for the next life. And so they are like in terms of the works or in terms of the activities, they are like different activities that people do, but the best activity which is related is the activities related with the dharma. When you are doing some activity related with your religion or dharma, then it is considered as the best or it's a supreme activity we should consider. So in terms of here in the last class, Gishila has already given the class. We have come in the section of the suffering when we are talking about the suffering. So when we reach in the concept of okay, when we reach in a concept of suffering, as Kishla gave in a last class, there's different types of the suffering. Where the right now current section is going in the reflection on the 8 types of suffering, where it is already covered the suffering of birth, suffering of old age, so suffering of illness. So where there's like five qualities, or already like five types, and all these are already mentioned. Like what are the 5 things or 5 5 points to contemplate, how the points to contemplate on the suffering of old age, and 5 points to contemplate on the suffering of illness, and the 5 points to contemplate on the suffering of old age and illness and birth. So these things have Geshe-la has already mentioned. So right now today we come in a suffering also suffering of the death. So in terms of the suffering of the death, there are again 5 points to be cultivated or contemplate. They are like you are separated from the object that are fine and attractive. You are separated from close relative who are fine and attractive. You are separated from companion who are fine and attractive. And you are deprived of the body that is fine and attractive. And you are, as you died, you experience terrible pain and anguish. So by by thinking on these 5 points, contemplating on these 5, then we can able to renunciate of we can able to renunciate or we can able to detach from the suffering of death. We can able to detach. So so how can is it like we can do it is first we have to in a such way that we in a deep down we can think about like the concept of death, and we can able to detach from it. So for this first we have to teach it, we have to think about it. We have to think the suffering of death, how the suffering of death comes, and like what are the suffering of death, and what are the points that to contemplate. So when we are doing this, then at the point we in the deep down we started to know that there's a started to know and started to contemplate on the suffering of death.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
That chi dumhe samba tele ya nga nane tambo wangshe duba piso choba dan jewa segunde tagara zo sendele ya sosu jupenju piso choba yubyang tana ta jupenju piso choba meba ina ta teda katja se yomara ta katje jebara ta jo penjo wangshe sosu le ya katse yoba ina ndo duna chi meso de so ina teze meken yomara 다 롱쇼 표성 초바 연나다 롱쇼 가제 요바 이나야 아니 치와레 용도 대다 카트리레서 다 디데 다 조펜조다 대서다 카트에서 상상 전에 근데 초와 동행 자유 여러 어ter은 생리야 강에 용 거를 다가 공부에 다 공부들 하송 가 유유유다 카트에서 세여세다 카트에서 알 젠차다 카트에서 어다 텐데 라만다 텐에 근데 치 동해 치게 나차게 용데 롱슈 네 두바 표소서 제 동해 용으로 지치 되니 잔지 두바 표소 초바 저서 잔지 사데 데레 다 소수게 다 시바이나 소수게 나타지 예체면 잡았다 어다 제메이나 소수 초간 잡았다 아니 소수게 보건 잡았다 아니 소수게 파마 어다 된데 소수 살려야 진짜 자 치효게 다 빈빈체 자체로 어때서 어다 야부터서다 카트는 거로 어다 된데 당한데서다 카트에서 상상 된 치고서 어떤게 생래야 좋아 동네 수천부 연구요래서 왔다 대치 동네 그때 지거 当I send the word, that she sona, so say pada, so say pama yoba in the pada catches, mother catches, Suzuki Jimmy, Shiba in the Jimmy the catches, Jimmy in a wrong chogata catches, wrong poda catches, bomber the catches, Susu tropa the catches, in a wrong pin chen the catches, so such a tenric told the Salia, and the Dume Chambu Yungu, yes, a cheat. Then could do by Puso Sobata Javas, that cause at the open Rabata, and then socially shall she can Rabata, or that tendelia, copies on could do by say that, then remember that they do his Miseo Marade, that drop and Rabata, Morsha Rabata, then the Chambo Yabo, and Tessa Catcher, or that then could do by Puso Sobata, and it catches on Sasa Tennis and a Kanye Chambo, as a terry. Tene li doba piso soba da cha, ta tene, ta yonzon yungura, ta shi yungde sosu gu zopa da kate ne da. Zopa de, tene mekhan jananda, sosu chin jananda, kanta tene ja, nisa tene la, sosu namshe de ma, shiwa shiwa lo ura. Tene yinde sosu zopa de da kate ne ge, ta te yinde, tene ya kange chekhe de te yungura. Ta nga nga tsu tangche ngapcha langa de, sosu zopa de ya, chi shun cha da da, 차고다 용무용 상태를 짜거든. 조번을 내가서 라팔은 거 기체 용도 거 용도 하셔서 찌기 쉬소나 내 라pen 거 용은 거 기체서 라파데 디송케서 담거 너네 다도 미다 뜻이 기체는 미마 중도 근데 전에 간다 소수게 차르보게 차셰도 좀마 배 송쇼체가 근데 송쇼체 자 전부 인진되게 자 인진주가 조법되다 아니 시용도 같은지라 와다 근데 되기 또는 생일이야 동해 하장거 전부 용을 강에 전부 용을 어때 류 두바 표소 줘봐 이게 아니 치 이것이 동해 미세 용을했어 다치 이제 동해다 이미다 잡아나 다치 이제 다치 이제 신의 나사 보여도 강에 열어라 아니 제 방아치 살을 전에 생내야 강에 배 몸에 생미시에 차네 아니 니세 뒤도도 니무 쿠케차 너 된데 진 벨레나 켄시르세 라용들레니 메테나 켄시르세 라송바이나니 보수 돈네 삼바 오늘 다치 소포 야포 요바이나 라상니 센테 마신 센티 슈체버체 도소포 라상마 남차드네 그 겐시르스 하마고바이나 로치 데켄이나 겐시르스 로용데 나치제 나를 종주거로 어떤데 조반 종주거도 너다 치 쳐와서다 언조게 퇴요도 다 지니 소소 산래야 동해 하정고 전부 용으로 어다 된게 돈에 산래야 동해 전부 용으로서 치 동해 되래 대나라 이쇼와 마주지 받아 양다양 셈바오 아마기 동해 돈 좋지 내서 딱 아마 원수 두바 표소 소바다 저와다 치 잔지 두바 표소 소바다 저와다 니코 두바 표소 소바다 저와다서 류 두바 표소 소바다 저와 이때 여버데 치 동해 나래 찌가 가르레스 치 동해래 장과 가르레스나 표소 여버 대다담 저와 돈이 동해와 왔다 마셔소나니 표소 소바 대게다 카트리게도 사사전에 살아야 미세게 좋아 동해 용그래서 아티 저땡게 콩다버데 되니 너 자체 줘봐 나도 자체 줘봐 레장스 쳐다 퍼다 쳐포 뒤져봐 방치 두비 쇼 다던지 신명용의 차반 좀만 인서 실내 논주 자기 논주 총서 다때베레 당가는 저 쳐와데 내용도 쳐다 퍼다서 치서도 다마 시카마 퍼서도 샤샤만 좋아들 치포그 뒤셔봐서는 시카마서 방시 두비 쇼 다도저서 다 소소게 자 전부 이비게 아니 빈빈체 내내저 자체로 파마 빈체 어때서다 카텐디그레스 어다 주변조다 카텐디그레스 심모 혹시 처번저 다 양저 마시 사소는 양저 수용화요 말레스 다 양저 처리 투화요 말레스 카텐디그레스 어때서 힐레 로주 라히스 힐레야 로마 마트와데 치바 흰게 야카 흰노 Lama pa, Tenkala Lama Tema, Trusona, Lama Tema, Trina, Trichirimas, Lama de Yanja, Hingi, no Yanja Mando, or that the Chibachijon. The Naging Chuk Junda Chivaris, shoot the march in Rotsadi, Yanja Chuti 공 양자 마용고 코로 만들어게도 마샤자마 탄루로 때 양자 야용아이도 어다 신게 로마 양자 야 신게 거야 마트사데 양자 야 자미아담 추준도 만들어사데 양자 야용아마 봐 테균 총레스 히차데 chewa onye pada omeshi cheye choje chue hinde yinsa chewa la onye pada sa on meba shesa on cha yoke ta ngaran so amaraga ge sinzi tabo jana ge sinzi tabo jago ge sinzi tabo on cha ha chang ge chambu yoke te se yina ya chida le yondile ne on cha chi ga nam so yere sa kor so pole ni ba meke kya cha hie wala ni ba meke lung gyu shue le ya ni ba meke se le ya sang nu tong da cha yi ga ge ni ba meke on cha tang che ne ba so re se chida ge chi chu je chue hin de ye che wa ge tang che chu re se so su le ya ye ce tang che pe le na chue ge hin ta ba ne chu chang bo chi ma ju de ni hin tang che ma rang me ba dan ru do pe te na ye re so pe ti sha me ne ni ni zhuo me che bu zhuo se 어떤 현재들 소소 니르제르 송르제 난도 줘요 말스 좀 해봐 소소 제보 이제 대시말 좀해 주본 거래스 어때 라는 저부 덴베 아야메스 라 아야메스 다 라래야 oncha yomase ta shawa shamaleya chi gan dro sang ga de sang de su su oncha chama cha yomase lenje gi le junde le ya ra le chares so so le zambo sa gyawa ya pu dru ya na ro sa zambo ta le zambo sa me ba yin na de pa me gya sa yo na le ngi bi ong ne wa ye da ton ro ten chi le kana gi je son ro chi ma to so so le ya oncha chi yo ma res ayames che ye so cha ja cha man zi te jumbi chola jachu chusin yin sur wateri ta che ge socha jata manzi des ta chewa ge ni socha jata tongcha ni zin de sa ta ten zin ya yin bara ta ngara so tanda zangli tole me tongshu jaji je yore te tangche lo jagi je chi amal be shira ta nama de me chimbong nga che chu chi hiru cha nang che de chimbong nga che chu chi nama de 어다 텐데 제니 다 네마 따바르게 메 징봉아체 거거 님봉제르 어다 텐데 시유르 텐데 시네 로자기 제라 단다게 데리 유비메 동슈 든주 자주하자데 조르고 다 당하 페달레다 동슈 동차 마원 장리 토숑르 히차르 그 마원 발레 장벌인데 어다 지만르게 바도 아니 메테소 어다 하마 시마시 텐데 제니 조르 대자마체 아니지 생체 장님 토게 뭐 드라마 요체 무슨 차모 요체 당치 시에 다신들 어들 시에게 소차 자타 mambo 단다로 쳐다게 시신바레데 단다가서 데리게 네말이야 되니 추세 내셔 자이게 어다 민봉 진봉 진봉 다 이제청 같은 네말에 종요요데 추세 내셔 자이게 나마 고바이나 네말에 아니 다 제 dünyayı ciğer 중국어다. 제 마주인데 추세래는 추세래는 저 마주 중국어. 대대 단단 시신바는 zam불인게 메코로. 단단 시신바 코로 시신바 몸부여 자차 까마르다 니마 샤부치노 니 되니 제 주딘시르나 다 아니 까마르르노메 자차카시 신주로 다 된지는 단단 시신바 차려. 대대 체 소차 자차 마음은 진대스 좀비 초라 자치 추진 예스 단 좀비 초라야 자치게 추신 게 아니야 소차 차차 마음 사이고로 단 좀비 초라야 소차 자차 봉차게 소데 진바 또하냐 그래서 다 추신 게다 소차 마음 시비치 사이고로 대자 로라 카딘 런치 생긴다스 로라 카딘스 달로 사데 주당 대처리 주 대처리야 샤게 샤 카딘스 나칼라 다 데모시부 요케 대처그 주스페 사인도 어때 로레야 카딘 나오기리스 람부체 레야 생기기 세가 람체 레야 케네 생기다버리스 사힌 준비 초라 메톤 초스 어때 다 자힌 준비 초라서 炸的心的出来呀，member 的就was，的这个炸的心汤去写了，别等到人啊村长里多跟着要吃大概呢，但中意的是吃大概没把做个说些送说话是我的的人，得把的解决呢，但启动的上不差去。
Last week lah. Okay. Oh. Just okay. So now the suffering of death, Geshe-la mentioned point by Geshe-la explained through the point wise. So first is when you are thinking the contemplation of in terms of suffering of death. The first point we have to contemplate it. You are separated from object that's a fine and okay. I think okay. We have you have to okay. The first thing to contemplate is you are separated. Please turn the previous page, 277. 277. It's still on 270. Yeah. So you have the first point, you are separated from the object that are fine and attractive. So here what it means that if someone has in this life, someone has a good abundance of wealth or having a abundance of wealth or a property or something, then it related, or some doesn't have, then it may be they are not closely connected to them. But in terms of like everyone has something they consider, like in everyone individual's life, everyone has something in their life that they consider is important. So in terms of that, like the first suffering of that contemplation is like when you pass away, you are like there's a suffering of detachment or not detachment, suffering of separation from the object or the wealth you like you feel you are attached to, or you like it. So when you are having separation of that time you feel that suffering. So that is that suffering comes when you are at the time of the death, like when you are having when you are in the process of dying, it comes. So for example, like at the time of the death you feel like I have a house. If you have a house and then you are having a suffering of, oh, now I will separate from my own house, that is a suffering you arise at the time of death. And then there's also suffering comes like when you are having abundance of wealth, then such a suffering arises at the time of death, that okay, during the death, that I have to separate from the my own wealth and my own wealth or my own things and property. So these are the sufferings arise at the time of death in the first portion. And now second is you are separated from close relative who are fine and attractive. So and the second is at the like during the process of dying, the people will feel the suffering of separation from his close one or the beloved one, so or companion. For example, like if a husband he's suffering of separation from his own wife, and as a wife there's a suffering of separation from her own kids, or some have a like a suffering or separation from their own parent or loved one. So such a separation causes the suffering to that person. So and some like separation from his own friend or cousin or his son or daughter. So such a separation at the time of dying caused such a separation caused the suffering to that person. So this is second point. And third point is you are separated from companion. Okay, third is you are separated from the companion who are fine and attractive. So third is like, okay, companion, and the first second is a close relative. So third is a companion. So companion here means like anyone who is like a friend or a person who serves you. Like if you may at the time of dying you may feel suffering or separation from the person who always serve you, or from your servants who always be nice to you and always serve you, or a person who is always follows you or serve you, or a friend who always there to support you. So during the time of dying you may feel this suffering of separation from your own companion. That is also called as such a separation is called a suffering at the time of dying. Then now the fourth is you are deprived of body that is fine and attractive. So now this is such a suffering that is like important or very like one of the like important suffering in the process of dying, and during the process of dying, that this is an important section of the suffering said the human beings, when they separated from their body, they because at the time of dying they have to they will separate from the dying, because they have separation of dying as their consciousness start to move to goes towards the next life. The consciousness started to separate from this present body and started to find for the new body or take a rebirth. So that the separation of body is also a suffering, because yeah. Okay, this it is because that because you are like attached, you are attached to your body, and you are always like the body is something you always attached to. For example, like there's like we as a human, we are scared that if there's a if something, like if we have to separate from our head, in terms of hand, like sometimes when something fall on us, we just protect our head by the hand. So it shows that we are more considerate of the head, because head is more important for us than the hand. So like we try to protect it. And also in terms of like in terms of the head parts, we consider eyes important, and in terms of like whenever something throw on us, we just try to close our eyes. So it shows like we are protecting our eyes. So when we have to separate from these things, and when we have to separate from our body or body part, then it is causing a huge suffering for the person at the time of the death. So that is the fourth one. Now it is the fifth one. As you died, you experience a terrible pain and anguish. So at the time of dying, you feel like you won't feel mentally stable. For the commoner who doesn't practice, for them, like they feel extremely terrible pain and then anguish, because due to that feeling of that they are now dying, they have to leave this world, and they have to leave all these families, friends, and relatives, and have to separate from their body. So they are having a few terrible pain and anguish. So for example, Kishla given that when someone is knows that he is having a cancer, then all of a sudden that person, within some days, his body started to change. His body started to degrade, and it become unwell, and he's becoming weak. The body becoming weak, and then as a hearing of having cancer, he hear like he think about, now he hear like the concept of death, that it gives a huge impact on him, that his body started to become more weak. As if a person doesn't know that he's having some person who doesn't know that he's having cancer, and maybe he stay more than the person who knows that he's having cancer, because that person is not aware that he's having cancer, and then he may stay longer because he's not aware. But if someone who knows that it is cancer, then he all of a sudden his thought process change, and his body become weak, and it degrade, and he started to think, when he started to hear about these things about the concept of death. When you hear the concept of death, then all you feel the huge suffering, like huge pain and anguish started to come. So reflect on this repeatedly until you become disengaged. So it is showing that one has to reflect on these 5 points, so that one can able to contemplate and like detach or from this suffering, one can able to. So, and how do the first four of these constitute suffering? And the answer is you suffer upon the seeing that you are losing these four excellent things. So now the question arises that why the first four, not last, the first 4 points of the contemplating of suffering of death? Why the first 4 points are constitute under the suffering? It is question. Then it is answered that the first four is considered in a suffering of death, because it's a separation from four excellent things. Excellent things mean that separation from your wealth, separation from your close relatives, separation from your companions, separation from your own body. So it feels a huge suffering or a huge sadness to you, that because you are separating from four excellent things of your life. That's why it is considered as a that's why it is constituted under the suffering. So now it is said in the sutra about this, is that in the extensive sports sutra, it is said that with the example, it is mentioned here that you die and pass on another life. In doing so, you are forever separated from people who are beautiful and beloved. So here it is like during like you die and go when in the process of dying and going to your consciousness moving to the next life, moving to the next life. It's like a time of the dying. In the process, it's the process of dying when you are like in the stage of dying and your consciousness is started to separating from your body. It is a process of dying. During that time, there's a separation from your loved one, your beloved one, your companion. That time there's a like a you're separate. There is a feeling of there is a started of separation from loved one and all this. So there's such things. Example as like tree when the leaves started to fall from the tree during the autumn. When the spring there's a new leaf started to grow, and during the autumn the leaves started to fall from the tree. And this when the leaves started to fall from the tree, it cannot be attached back to the tree because it is already fallen and it cannot be attached. And also this example, like when the water started to flow on the when water started to flow on one direction, it can't flow back to the opposite direction. Once the water flow on that direction, it won't come back. So this shows that it won't come back. So that when the process of dying start, one can't able to come back and can't attach to the same body or same family, or again he can't do like coming back to the same body. So uh, okay, so that means like a leaf fallen from a tree, the current of the river, you will never return and meet them again. So once you died or pass away, you can't able to meet again your relatives, meet again your family, or you can't able to get back to the same body. So that may be powerful, or makes the powerful weak, that takes you away as a river carried away along. People go alone, unaccompanied, and with no companion, powerless, because the karma has its effect. So here it is mentioned that that is the most that makes even the most powerful person awake. For example, even the American or say a Chinese or Indian president, even they are the most supreme power leaders in the world. Even they are like most supreme powerful leaders. They don't have a power when it comes to the death. They can't able to control the death, and even they are like most powerful person. They don't have power when when the death arises on them, when the death at the time of death, as it takes all your freedom. It takes all your power. The death takes all your power, and you have to go under such a consequence, or you have to die away. So like such a, for example, it is there that okay, so there's an example that that takes you away and takes all your power, and you have to go under that. It is example this once the wooden lock, when it flow down the river, it cannot be come back. The lock cannot be come back, but it will fall where the rivers is flowing. So it can't go back. Such like that, when the death comes, you can't able to go back. You can't able to come back. So people go alone and accompanied, and they have no companion. So one has to go alone without any friend, and you don't have a power or freedom to take birth, as you have to. You can't. You don't have freedom or power to take birth, because take birth according to your wish wherever you want. As a lay people, as a normal like commoner, you can't have a power, because you have to go through your karmas, your action, what you did, and you have to face the consequences of your karma. Where if you in this life, whether you have did a good karma or not, it's due to that consequences. You have to face the effect of the karma takes you where to take birth. And even like death seizes your myriad living beings, myriad as a sea monster seizes a swarm of creatures, and an eagle seizes a snake, a lion an elephant, and a fire takes a hold of grass, tree, and swarming creatures. So here it is mentioned that okay, death ceases mean death controlled or death took all the death is not death doesn't select only few people, but it is it has a power. It took everyone. Everyone has to follow this concept, or everyone has to go under this process. Even there's a 1 billion human beings are there. So like there is 1 billion human beings, everyone has to follow this. Everyone is to go under the mouth of the dead, and the process of the dead have to face this. So for Gishla gave an example that maybe for example that they may be like 1 lakh of 50K 50,000, 1 lakh of 50,000 people die in a one day or in a 24 hours, or maybe 2 lakhs people are dying in a maybe 2 lakhs people are dying. So in after 100 years, okay, this one okay, so 2 lakhs people are dying. So today we at 24 for example, like today we have 24 hours at present, that in this 24 hours, at present, maybe around 60K or 60K, 60,000 people are dying. And if you analyze it, so they are like like around in a minute, maybe 10K people are dying, 10K people or more than it is dying. So you can see that currently when we like Geshe-la is giving right now teaching, they are like in some section or some part of world, the people are like dying, the people are dying. So it shows that even there's a 1 billion or people, or they're like how many peoples right now, or how many sentient beings right now in the like in this world, in this earth, after 100 years or maybe after 1,000 years, the present people, the current humans or current living beings which are now in the earth won't be there after 100 or 1,000 years, won't be there. So it is already dead or it is already passed away. So that is such as like everyone has to go under the process of dying. For example, like one has to one like a sea monster, like a crocodile, they had like the creatures, the swamp creatures has to go under the have to face the will go under or will be eat by the sea monster. And the bird like eagle eat the snakes, or eagle capture the snakes, or the lion eat the elephants. And also like fire, when it started to fire on the dry grass, it covers all the grasses, trees and everything. So it covers, so like this dead sees the all the living beings, like that all the living beings has to go under the process of dying. No one can escape from that. So
Yeah, yeah. But then, that Tanda Dunhe Jesamba now, Yetsare, She Dunge, Naye Dunge, Gaye Dunge, Chi Dunge, Yetsaj. That Tama Yeter, Medupa the Tree Dunge, Dupatan, or Tree Dunge, Duping of a Teacher Menipi Dunge, Nawalimbi Pombanga Dunge, Asa, what that take it. I take it tell you, young Regan on Gaman, Udo, Santon Du. Ta medupa da tree dunhe sanchu telaya ne ngayo res sambala ya ngate drata bota cheba zaji dunhe da yimi dewa shabas ta medupa da chesa medupa sa da soso senle menjo che soso magasa susi yido mwa de chuta che mendu ge de che por tinji gi dunhe yo res ma chu melia ta tepe lemba ta tenga no tambo soso jade ndogu marete jada che 마다 체 어다 된데 자다 체바 저지 동해시 다 소소 자야나 자야나 잡고 소소 세컨 잡고 메나 때미나야 소소 줄을 좀혼을 주게 따고 소소 조캔 따고 소소래야 지 슈현 따고 근데 소소래야 치주마게 라소베 된데 자다 체바 저지 소소래야 류리야 동해 살래야 동해 또 용거래서 동해도 이미다시 지지 어때 대 체배 주빈 집이 내수 줘봐서 대 지ren도 다 대답이 자다 체바 장지 동에 샤마제네 잔나기 대게네 소소래야 체바체네 지브나 소소래 마가 캔게 지브다빈 준 정콜 주와다 아니 깜발아바치 아나기 어다 자파린다다 자테서 그 깜발아바체 야소래야 능가 나바시세라 대리 체배 주빈 집이 내수 대리 잡이네 자레스 어디 네바들 시소 제바 메바데 땅에 빈지바 당서 어때래 다지 땅년바 다 땅년바데 나츠 체도야 말했대 이나야 메게 소설이야 내 야포만도 데두자도 다 땅년바 뭐뭐진 좋고도 어때서 다 메두바레데 메두바데 체 땅년바 소설이야 메테게 소설 책과 제면아야 메테게 데체서 많이 가요게 돈 땅다 메카 뭐뭐 용도 어다 된게 땅년바게 돈에 동해 용거를 했었지 손바디지 나가 제도 체인지 받다 나가 제도서 딱 강에 체기 강에 저저도 체는 메신들이야 강에 잡이 나서 체인 비도는 아니 체인지 와서 시와를 자유를 더 메두바도 체이 동에 내가 아니 갈로그다 나가 제도 체와서 나가 제도 체와서 메두바 찬데 얘도 뭐와 찬데 언지바 대 이바들 쉐랭게 히와도 년조 송지 돈이 지바 다 소소 챈데래야 쉐당 민팅비게 다 메게초나 뭐부지 제사요레스 근데 제사인데 쉐당 제사리 쉐당 게게 데파 제사디 근데 소소 쉐노야 호정 제디 하고라 되니 히소나 nga nyawali shege yidali shege tonri shege tene ne topasa sale ya nga tayo go yore so watan shiwa to nyenjo sungi to ninji pate wata tinri ge nga terta tenga tedala semba wos medupa de trigi dunhe sanchu nga de nga te chi joina
now we we come in the the fifth one among the 8 types of suffering. We come at the suffering of encountering with the unpleasant. So in terms of when we are talking about the actual materialization of suffering, there's different reflection on universal suffering or cyclic existence. There are different types of suffering. So right now all these points of the sufferings are go under the reflection on 8 types of suffering. So Gisela has already completed the 4 types, which are suffering of birth, suffering of old age, and suffering of illness and suffering of death. Now it is left with the other 4 suffering, which is suffering of encountering with what is unpleasant, suffering of separation from what is pleasant, suffering of not getting what you want, and suffering of 5 appropriate aggregates. So among these, the first is among the last 4. The first is the suffering of separation from what is unpleasant. So here again, all the last 4 also have each 5 points to contemplate. So in this, the first is among the last 4. First is the suffering of encountering what is unpleasant. In this, in this one unpleasant, there are again 5 points to be contemplate or think. So in this, what is now firstly the concept of what is unpleasant is mentioned about according to here. The unpleasant means is encountering with the things or object or anything which you don't like, which you don't want, or which you don't like. When you encounter with such thing, then there's a feeling of unpleasant or feeling of unpleasant. This is a concept of the encountering with what is unpleasant means. So in there are 5 points to contemplate. First is merely encountering your enemies, for example, cause pain and anguish. So here is first is when you encounter the person you don't like, such as your enemy. The person you don't like is your enemy. So enemy, when you encounter with the enemy, so you don't like, you feel like anger, or you feel negative emotion. So it harms you, and it is bad for you. So it harms you, and it causes you a pain and anguish. So this also leads to the suffering. So you are encountering with the unpleasant objects such as enemy, which cause your suffering. Now second is you dwell in a feel of being punished by them. So when you're encountering with your enemy, then you also have a fear that maybe this enemy will punish me, or enemy will harm me. That enemy will my enemy will harm me, or he may harm my body. He may cut some part of my body, or he may harm me, or sometimes he may punish me, or he may inform the king, or he may inform the some supreme power one of some bad thing about me, and they will punish me, and they will put me in a prison. So there was there's a fear dwell inside you, when you encountering with the enemy. So when you encounter with the enemy, such a fear also lead to the suffering, and this is suffering or unpleasant. So unpleasant because you don't like those punishment, and you don't like those punishment, and those fear still you have to encounter. So this is a suffering or unpleasant. And then now third is you fear that they will speak maliciously without kind words. So the third point is when you encounter with your enemy, even you don't do anything bad, or even you didn't do anything, or didn't say anything not good thing, or didn't say anything bad, still people may say bad about you. They will say bad about you. So you may fear, you have a unpleasant feeling, or fear of the fear that they will speak maliciously or not kind words about you. That is a fear you will have when you are encountering with the unpleasant. And then now the fourth is the dreaded. And there's the uncountering. The another one is encountering with the unpleasantness, and encountering with the unpleasant death. Unpleasant death means when there's too much suffering for you at the time of dying, when you have too much suffering, then it is called unpleasant death. So that is also encountering with the unpleasant. That's during the too much pain, during the process of dying, also causes the suffering. So it is encountering with the with the unpleasant. Now, in the final is you are worried that you will go to miserable realm after the death for having acted contrary or to the teaching. So in the present life, if you didn't do anything good things, or if you go against the teachings or the dharmas, teaching of the teachings and the dharma, then when you have acted against these things, then at the time of the death, you or like you may worried, you will worried about you may take in the lower rebirths, you may take in the lower rebirths or miserable limb after the death, because you have gone against, you have done action against the teachings, and you did action against the teaching means you did some sinful or non-virtuous action. So when you are doing these things, then it is also like you are worried, or you may feel unpleasant that you will take birth in a miserable realm. So these are the 5 points which is which have one contemplate during the in the suffering or encountering with the what is unpleasant. Now let's hustle.
Last one, yeah. Then, ta nepate, ta abachu tupateri, dupa ta tree dume sat. Ta dupa sat, senlia yung deken, to soso senlia chi ndapa yoke, sen tang chi sen gasa, ta telia dupa ser. Sen soso gasa te ta kachi gi dume yung res. Ta naran te yung do, dume sambala yang ates. Ta pele na ngana la yena ta sosu pei da kachene ta lo yichu reja sonju songa soju ta sonju soju re wore o ta tende da bare sosu pei ta shepu yinanda minanda pei sa de jang do ta na yinge tene ngara so pecha de gita sosu pama de da kache sara pa da kache ma da kache o ta tende Ota pimpinche dani kache ta choga yoke choga da kache ta susuge jeme yoke jeme da kache ane pogo yoke kake pama yo pogo hyuri chene pam pogo da kache alas tene ga tsurum me no dunge shebu yungu da dupa da tri dunge pado meba ane jupenjo yoke ta so yang te jiko go cho shwa ta japa go cho shwa ta ane yang go tone cho shwa la so ka ta susuge yi tong ge jupenjo so da tri dunge so ta tere mo bu do ta ma ye ti wa ndo do ba da tri dunge samba la nga des ta che pombi ne la so ba ta tre ba na de se la na nge sha wa ta se ji re che pomba sa de se na ha jang ge so se ga sa so zao qian bo ge ni so ge pa ma pin che de so da ka che ne ni se le dunge qian bo yong do 소소 가사 가 체총 그 돈에 대다 카트에서나 셀레 동해 체총 거를 소소 가사 가 체총 대다 카트에서는 셀레 동해 쳐와 되니 텔레테즈가 총나 대다 카트에 동해 대총 알레 텔레 마총 알레 소소 마가사다 카트에 셀 동해 오모도 되니 소소 내시게 대다 카트에나 셀레 가와체로 다 된다 버려 체 펑비게 내라 소바다 저와 대셀라 동해 셔와 상추 제일 아니 나도 행한 더 봤다스 다 나도 행한 더 봤다스 요데 칼이야 니치 다 좀부 개차 좀부지 더 되네 개차래야 친행부지다 이 동이 개차 해주 매케진 대다 되네 지른지 마송 레마송 카차소 나레소 세네지 민디 메타 쫑쫑 이제 된적 칼에 행한 되비 된적 돈이 동해 teni taa nao yingi lulaya chi nyapa shiwa. Ta lulaya rami naso ka nyapa shi yungde, ta lulaya nyapa mishi pa ta tre chukura, lulaya pen topa ta ka treni, lulaya nyapa naso nchongwa ye dunge. Yute yute treki ndepe yidongwa tans, ta soso ka tre sanjo ke soso peyin jabo. Taa nao yingi soso ke ta chi jupen jo kar laso na te yute treni, ane pama pinche te suka yute treni, ane selaya dunge chungwa. Dupata tri dunga, yuti yutete, dupe yidunga. Ta te kazere sutta, ni shik. Te longsho ma tsangwa, te nala samba os. Te longsho ma tsangwa te se, ta longsho penjo le ya, ta 소소리 규아 차마송아치네 지유나 지메 니유나 소메 어따 텐데게 야 샤마여든 하마면 하마여든 샤마메 케텐데게 이 두바다 카트이게 동해 어따 텐데 상고래 해서 왔더래 대롱쇼 마차 때나 삼바오스 어땡아들이 다 나데 간드레에서는 체 판베네라 소바다 저와나 대세지 셀라냥에 셔왔다 지주 나도 행한 되비기 눈에 셔왔다 니 르라 녀바시비 차네 눈에 좋았다 송 유티 두바테타 두바테타 티기 요테 전에 셀라 눈에 셔왔다 제 아니 티기 유티기 롱쇼 마차와서 변조 인하다 가리나 차마상하지 차마상의 소수 생각에 동행조 어떤 sen tenala senpa ose dupa ta chi dunga sansi o ta te chi juina
La sogila. Okay, now Kishla giving a class on the fifth one, the suffering or encountering what is okay, no, sixth one, suffering or encountering what is pleasant. So before that, one has to contemplate on the suffering or encountering what is unpleasant, which is already mentioned the five of these. Now it comes to the sixth one, the suffering or separation from what is pleasant. So again, in terms of suffering or separation of what is pleasant, the concept of what is pleasant means is okay. So, what is the things that you are attached to or you like it? That's the any object or any being or any object whom you like or whom you are attached to, whom you loved. These are the call as a pleasant one. These are the objects of the pleasant one. So again, there are again the 5 points for these to contemplate. It's when you are separated from your dear relatives. So in terms of like loved one, there's like there in this concept what is a pleasant means like when you are separation from your loved one, like for example Kishla has separated from his country for maybe around 35 or 36 years. Now he never saw his country after he left the Tibet 35 or 36 years before. So there's always a suffering or separation from there, from separating from your country. And then there's also a separation, there's some people having a suffering or separation from their parents, which are pleasant for them, like parents, their loved one. So when you are talking about your when you are separated from your dear relatives, so you are talking when you are talking of pleasant means like the thing which you are attached to or which you love it, so or which you consider as a very close, such as your country or your parents, or for the wife it may be her husband, or for or some or wife it may be her kids. So like these are the things which give you a happiness, or which you consider the nearest close one or loved one. So these which give you a pleasant. So here, like when you are separated from your dear relatives, when you are separated from your dear relatives, then such a like 5 point, the separation from such causes a suffering. So what are the five things that it comes when you're separated from your dear relatives are: in your mind sorrow arises. So first is the in your mind sorrow arises. When you separated from your loved one or your close one, then your emotionally you will feel pain or anguish, and you will feel the sorrow will start to arise. So for example, like okay, for some people, like also Kishla mentioned that there are different varieties. Okay, so there are lots of people having a different suffering. It comes when there are different varieties of suffering according to the person whom you love. So for example, like if you love someone very much, or he's a closest friend or closest relative or nearest or the nearest person of your life, then if you lose that person, then there's a huge suffering or separation from that person. And if there's a one friend whom you consider as a normal friend, not as a very close one, and losing that person is not that much painful as losing very close or closest person. So the suffering is also whereas among the person whom you amongst the loved ones. So the whom you consider the closest or the dearest, that there is the more suffering of separation. The consistency or this amount of suffering is more as compared to the person whom you less love as compared to that closest one. So suffering also right. So and there's like if you love someone, if you care someone, there's also always have a suffering, or suffering of separation from those things, like suffer even for the some people, even the separation from their own wealth or their own property also give them a huge suffering, because they consider these things as a pleasant or attached to it, so they feel that there's huge suffering. So suffering, and so the first point is, in your mind the sorrow arises when you separated from these close one, or your like important or very essential thing of your life, or important thing of your life, then they arises the sorrow. Now second is, in your speech you lament. So in your speech is it okay, so you started to you started to curse, or you started to say uh gila di meng nga tumma menga dumba la de kare nga chogum mukshi tamaro lai re gila.
And understand that Tangan Master, Chiria Master, Niria Master says,
Okay.
Senti Karma Him.
Okay, the now second point in your speech, you lemon, it means like when you separated from that person, or that close person, or that close thing, then you started to feel like you started to say the speech, like speech such as it's not good, or now it's all over, I can't do anything. These things started to like you started to say these things. You started to verbally you started to say these things, because in deep side inside you are feeling so much pain that you started to feel like, now I can't do anything, I think I can't do anything, I can't, it is all over, and all these things you started to say. And then the third things is you bring harm to your own body. So when you separated from your close one, then there's a huge suffering, or huge pain, or pain or sorrow arising in your body, inside your emotionally you are in a huge sorrow or pain, that you started to harm your body, like not eating the food, or you started to started to harm your own body. So this is how the separation from what is pleasant is all causing you. So and then the fourth is you are saddened, recalling and missing the good qualities of what you have lost. So in terms of like you will started to feel sad, and you started to miss those things, or those good times with the person whom you consider the close person, and the good qualities of that person. Now it is not coming back, and it is already lost. So you will started to recall these things. So for some person whom the like for the Tibetan and for Gishila, the country we lost is like our country, even it is like what the country, however the situation is, we always consider that this is our country and always attached to it. So like thinking, when we lost our country, there's always a saddening or recalling and missing of that countries, and the qualities, good qualities of that countries also. And some people, when they lost their parents, they also lead to the suffering of losing them, and recalling their good qualities. And now the fifth one is recourse or no is no longer available of what you have lost. So there was a there's a due to the like there's a suffering of absence of them, like the those things, or those things, or the person who is not available right now. So you will feel the having the suffering of no longer available of them. So it feels you are suffering that now they are not available anymore, and they can't come back. That is also lead to the suffering. So these are the 5 points one has to contemplate when you contemplate on this when you are thinking about suffering. We have to contemplate, or when you are separation, when the separation from a pleasant thing arises, then such a suffering will arise. These 5 suffering will points will be arises.
Teni Yivanga Batuba, Tadumba, Ndopati, Mani Bidunga Sadir. Tandopati, Mani Bidunga Sad, Ta Soso Guate, Taj Arata, Tauket Senate, Maragi Dunga, Tate Sanchi Telia, Dunga Sambala Ates, Tupata Javatan was Tateni, Korea, Dupata Tia, that the Chevares, Dupata Tia, the Korea and there are. Midupat Tree Dunge, and Dubata Tree Dunge said, Tatikatu Nada, Chiba Inso, Chapombi Nella Sobata Trena, Sela Nangesha, Matum Hangan Dubiki Dunge, Rilla Noba Shipiki Dunge, Uti Yate Dunge Sendama Ado, but that Tinichiba Insosha. Dubata Travatan was. Dopazite manepanes, Sonashi Toto Manjubatam. That the pet Sangi Jabayina. I Hinka Lebayina, Hinka Lekina, Hinka Le, Hinka Len, Kolesh, which is Jona, and then Tankale, Toto Yapum, Moyachi. Or there now get Chunja, Coleta, and Chung Camera, Chini Choran. Or there now get Zodanda to the Sakonda, to the Sakonda, yes, colors or Sakon to South and Tele, Sakin Memelaso, then they told it, and it just sounded Mundoach. All that is Sonashi Totoman, Chunshi, Kepo, Matemba Sute, Kala Java Timbeni, Sea Mani Beseta, do dinner Soso Geshawa, Kare, June, the Tip Junaya, and Room to Achini. And room to Nani, Kangawa. Sea Mani Bichi be doing his order, each and send a Java Chen, Sally Kangation, what did it do my ears? Or that day, or that teacher, that any Japateri. Dona Navalimbi Pomanga Dunhe, Kesumbi Tersambana, do dinner Navalimbi Pomanga Dunga is that the Japateri, Dunhe Jesambi Nonga Jaba. Only and Japati the money be Dunhe de Dumbara. Or that Dona Navalimbi Pomanga Dunhe, said the Jabari. That Navalimbi Pomanga Sakarasana, Lineage Onga Trubi, Zuchi Pombo, Soy Pombo, Doheji Pombo, Dojeji Pombo, Nambashi be Pombo Abatele, Lineage Onga Trubi, any tender get Pombo Atele, Navalim Pomongas, Dunhis Tersabanates. No Bandrubi Dunhich in her dance. Ah, that no Bandrubi Dunhich in her. That no Bandrubi get Dunhin her said, Mambale and just shower, Lag and I don't stand up give Lutin de, Pombo Abende. Mamba Dunghe Jonsage, Lusa, Maratsu Jada Kala Lusagan her tabo, Dunghe Jonsagan her is a Mampi Dunghe Jon. Moban Drusa the Mambal, Angara Tandau Rupan do the Mambal, Dunghe Jineta. Moba Truba let them be Dunghe Jinetans. Moba Truba said that and Dunghe Shun Sanjo. Or that Dunghe Hama Tesole Tune Lutin the Tour. Moban Ruba let them be Dunghe Jinet. Oh, take your nurse. Hamigi, don't have Hama to get on her. Eh, Shaman Jun get her. Dunghechi, Dunghechi, Dungasatan around so. Tangon, Nenata Nayo de Dunghe Yora, that's what Dunghe. Oh, Tatere, Lapa Megisina, Dunghe. And then God Nadi Dunghe, Kamba Nadi Dunghe, oh, that Nenata Nadi Dunghe, and then Susugi, oh, that Chua Dunghechi do dinner. Oh, the Chulia Dunghechi Dunghe. Dunghechi Dunghen Josaga, the Narotu Juki Nelech Pombo Abatis. That tell you its own deja. Or Tandaki Suchi Pombo, or Sad Suchi Pombo de Oban Ruby Dunghechi Nurse. Zuchi Pombo, Toy Pombo, Duhechi Pombo, Duji Pombo, Pombo Alpajana and Tiura. No ban Ruby Dunghechi heard the Narantu Jugi, now Hitchi Pombo design. Now Hitchi Pombo de Mambalia, Shawala, Yeta, no ban Ruby Dunghechi heard the now Hitch Pombo deja. No but Trubala Timbi Dunghechi Sate, Takalogre, Zuchi Pombo tere, Zuchi Pombo te, no ban Rubate, Shaw Humigi Leongima, Zuchi Pombo te, no ban Rubala Timbi Dunghechi. The Zuchi Pombo Jabain. That Dungechi Dungen has said that Soy Pombo. After Soy Pombo take Dungechi Dungen Joy, Dungechi Dungen Josak and her the Soari, Soy Pombo is. Oh, Tere. That Ndojichi Pombo, Zuchipo Soy Pombo, Ndojichi Pombos. Ndojichi Pombo, Njui Dungechi. Oh, that Ndohe Rami Getonini, that Joan Johnny. Pelena, Tano Shoke Shipina, Gonda Mishiki Chake. Ah, Shoke Mishina, Nibuship and Dabacha. Then they get Jinju to him, which you would know, or Ju to him, the hitch Pomba Latin, Ju to hitch, the hitch Pombate, Ju to hitch it. Tan Dojeji, Dunga, Dojeji Pombo said, Chaban Dojeji Dunga. That Chaban Doji Dunga Rangiri is, that did it. Pombonga in Dojeji Pombo, Chaban Dojeji Dunga Rangiji. tenrige ta dumhe rangi to chobate teda la yang sambawa ta techo sanyo yang ya to tangore sa ta tere o tere ta te mandre he hi sabu joyo de jesunga ba che tela tambo ne ji pombo de sa ta pombo nga ka ja nan de pombo re ja nan de do dan de ma pombo nga ka ma ja do ne ji pombo sa che ne ji pombo de nga ro zu lun de lang cha de lun de lang ba la te ne ni sha shama ka lu la de ten ki sa le she yi chen ji chi wa se do sha shama de dung he nan jen yo ta ra me ba jen yo ta cha cha ja ta me le yo ta o te insan ngo ban ru bi dung he chi te re is a ne pa ne se de ngo ban ru ba la ti bi dung he chi ne ta sa che ke ne le chi pom de chu cha de pom bu chu sim ba la ten bi is na ga la su bi ten to jo ba pom bu de chu cha yi je pom bu de la ten bi ge na yi dung he ga yi dung he ani o ta sha ga na chi ge dung he kang che ge ten de ani ne le chi pom bu de ri es ten to jo ba re es o ta te ngo ban ru ba la ti bi dung he chi ne Tene somba tang yeba ne se njui dunga chi ne ta doji dunga chi rangi chuba se dunga chi dunga tang njui dunga de somba de yeba tera dunga ne bo ti ne nge le jason de ti ni sha ba was ta ne ne chi pomba de ye sa du dunga chi dunga yo she ngor njui dunga yo ra ma pa koron mendu ye do she ngor se dunga chi dunga tang njui dunga ne wa tere ti ni sha ba was ta nga ba sa de de Ndoje chi donghe chi rangi tu choba desi. Nene chi pombo, sachi nene chi pombo de tu samji ndoje chi donghe rangi she sar. Ate le ta nyo mo pa kami genji anto chobe le ne chi yang chi yinpi shirs. Ota te ta kyo na le ga an, le ta nyo mo ga anto sun tsayi shinche le ya, ane ndoje chi donghe ke rangi de yesi. Ote le. Kami genji anto chobe ndoje tangji ndoje chi donghe yinpi shiros. Lene ke yang chen to sun tsadi chaban ndoje chi donghe rangi de yesi. Ota te le. 근데 히도 동해 소재 거서 해봐 샤오스 다데 처번 두지지 동해 네 히차부터 원래 동해 송게 카토 해yin 인소를 어디지 지주가 있나 아니 샤 어디지 주로 주죠
Oh, last okila. Okay, now this quite what is okay. Okay. Now we reach Gisha giving a class on the 7-1 suffering of not getting what you want. When you are talking about suffering of not getting what you want, is what does it means? It's not getting what, like sometimes we try to get something, we do a hard work on these things, but we at the end we don't get it. So at that time we face such a suffering. That is called the suffering of not getting what you want. So in terms here, again there are 5 points, and these 5 points are similar to the suffering of separation from what is pleasant. So in the number 6 of suffering, you have already seen the 5 points. The suffering of separation from what is pleasant, you have seen the 5 points. In the mind, in your mind, sorrow arises. In your speech, your lament, and you bring harm to your own body. You are saddened and recalling, missing the good qualities to what you have lost, and recourse no longer available to what you have lost. So these 5 points is also similar to the these 5 points also goes similar to the suffering on the seventh suffering or not getting what you want. So when you when you don't get when you don't get the things that you want, you also feel the same suffering, which already mentioned in the sixth suffering. So you will feel the sorrow in your mind. There is a pain will arise in your speech. You will start to say like it's all over and it can't be possible, and all this will, and you started to harm your body because you are not getting the thing you want, and you will feel that you don't want to eat food because that person is not there, the thing you want is you didn't get, and so you started to miss or recall or sadden, and then you will feel the pain of not having them any longer. So these 5 points also go similar with the suffering of not getting what you want. And seventh, so here when you are talking about like seeking but not getting what you want means, like for here the example is it is mentioned that what you want is the concept of not getting what you want means it is giving through the example that example that even that okay for example, like when farmer after the lot of hard work, when a farmer after the lot of hard work in the field, at the end, at the time of harvest, when there was a not good result was come, or there's a farm was not good, they doesn't get a full good fruit or good result, or they then it is like they are having they doesn't get what they want after the loss of hard work. This is then it causes suffering. And then the second example is engaging in business but receiving no profit. It is like when you even after a lot of hard work, or putting your income on a business, or putting doing lots of hard work on a business, but at the end you receive no profit from that person, that particular business, then that is a that you will feel like a pain or suffering because you are not getting what you want. And also, like sometimes in a restaurants, like you started to own your own restaurant and you started to work for it, but if the customers doesn't come inside, or doesn't you don't get a good customers in the restaurant, then you also started to feel suffering because you are not getting what you want. And such at that time there's a like suffering, you will feel the suffering. So this that time the pain of suffering is your pain of disappointment comes to the working hard to get something for that you long for or not getting it. Then at times such a suffering like a disappointment, suffering or disappointment will come because you have worked so hard for the such things, but still you are not getting the proper result. So suffering or disheartened or discouraged also comes up because you are not getting, or you did too much for that thing, but you are not getting these things. So this is a eighth suffering, a seventh one of the suffering. From the eight types of suffering, there's a seventh one, seventh sufferings, which is the suffering of not getting what you want. Now there's now the eighth suffering. Now it comes the eighth suffering, suffering of five aggregates, five appropriate aggregates. So in terms of the five appropriate aggregates in Buddhism, what are the five appropriate aggregates? Are the we call it like five aggregates of form, which is called a rupa skandha, and then aggregate of feeling, vedanta skandha, and aggregate of perception, samgyan skandha, and samskara skandha for the aggregate of compositional factor, and aggregate of consciousness for the Vigyan skand. So these five skand, when you are talking, or aggregates, are the five appropriate aggregates. So there's the eighth suffering is the suffering of five appropriate aggregates. So here. What are the five? Why the five constants are five aggregates, appropriate aggregates? Is how it is like the Buddha said. In brief, the five appropriate aggregates are suffering. Buddha has mentioned briefly that all these are suffering. So, reflection on the meaning of this teaching again takes 5 points, and the nature of the five aggregates appropriate by the karmas and affliction to be. So here it is means that these five aggregates, five appropriate aggregates, arises due to the data. It comes due to our afflictions and karma. Once we started to go under the karmas and under the rule of karmas and affliction, when you are not detached from affliction, and when you are under the influence of affliction and karma, then you are started to have these five appropriate aggregates. So um, so there are 5 points to contemplate on this suffering. These 5 points are vessels of the further suffering. So in here, this like the five aggregates are the vessel for the different suffering. Like five aggregates are the vessel of the suffering. So firstly is the vessel for the future suffering. This goes to the aggregate of consciousness, because aggregate of consciousness is considered as a vessel for the future suffering, because it is a consciousness which lead us to the arising of the future suffering, because through consciousness this arising of all the feelings and all the actions started to arise. So that's why it is a vessel for the future suffering. And now it is the second one is a vessel for the suffering based on the presently exists. This goes to the aggregate of the body. When you are aggregated, the body is a vessel for the suffering based on the presently exist. So because the body is the when the physical body, we feel pain, we feel sometimes we are sick, and sometimes we feel pain and these injuries, and this why This is our physical bodies are suffering based on what presently exists. Whatever the present suffering we face physically is due to this body, this body. That's why it's a vessel for the suffering based on the presently exists. Now, third is a vessel for the suffering of pain. So when you are talking about the suffering of pain, what is a vessel? Is the vessel the aggregates of feeling. Aggregate of feeling is a vessel for the suffering of pain. All the pain and all the pain or pain and the negative emotion due to our feelings. It's like it is a vessel for those all this pain. So now in the fourth one is a aggregate of perception, where it is like this is aggregate of perception is a suffering for change. It is considered under the suffering of change. So yeah, suffering of change. So it is comes like due to like morning, due to we have like human beings having a different perception every time. That's like in the morning sometimes they stay happy, in the evening they stay sad. So it continuously changing every time. It's continuously changing. So different perception, it also led to different it's like at the morning it becomes happy state, and sometimes it will at the evening, yeah, again you changes and you become the sad. So the perception always changes. That it also causes suffering. That is called the suffering or change. So here you can see that suffering of pain during the aggregates of feeling is a vessel for suffering of pain, which shows the in terms of suffering. It's in terms of three types of suffering. It's a suffering of suffering. It's showing the suffering of suffering. And but in terms of the the fourth one, vessel for the suffering of change, it is called aggregates of the perception, where it shows the in types of three types of suffering. It shows the second suffering, suffering of change. Now, in terms of fifth one, a vessel for the suffering of conditionality. In this this is considered as a like this is a vessel which lead to the which lead us to the which is a nature of the always having nature of the which arise due to the karmas and affliction, that due to the control by the karmas and affliction, there's a continuousness coming of the suffering of conditionality. The conditionality suffering will arise. So here the vessel, the vessel is among the five aggregate, which is it goes, the vessel which goes for this is the vessel of aggregates or compositional factor. The aggregates or compositional factor, it is for this suffering of conditionality. So one has to reflect on these 5 points to think about suffering of five appropriate aggregates. So five appropriate aggregate among each 1 point, among each 5 points, each points related to the one aggregate, so which one has to contemplate, so that he can know the suffering of five appropriate aggregates. So one has to reflect on this again and again. And here, with the regard to the, now it comes in here, with the regard to the first point, it is like suffering of future vessel for the future suffering. In regard to the first point, you induce in the future life by taking up these appropriate aggregates. So one by taking up the one having these five aggregates, five appropriate aggregates, one will have to because five appropriate aggregates arise due to the karmas and affliction, due to arising of the karmas and affliction. So it induces the suffering in the future lives, because it induced due to your consciousness aggregates or consciousness, all this, it makes you to so it causes the sufferings in the future life, because due to this you started to do actions, and also it causes the karmas of the future life. So it is induced suffering in the future life. As for the second is a vessel for suffering based on the presently exists, the appropriate aggregate form, because here it is shown that aggregate of form, because the vessel for this suffering is based vessel for this suffering is an aggregate of form. So aggregate of form, the basis for the state such as illness, old age, that is grounded in already existing aggregate. So it is that when you are having an already existing aggregate, like in the present life you already have an existing aggregate, so all this old age, all this illness or pain, in the terms of like pain of getting old, pain of taking birth, suffering of taking birth, suffering of getting old, suffering of illness, suffering of dying, all this come in the present life because you already have these aggregates. So the second point is that appropriate of aggregate form is a basis of this state, because through in this body you are facing all this suffering, like suffering of old age, suffering of sickness, suffering of taking birth, suffering of dying. So these are the coming in this. So this one. So the second is a second vessel for suffering based on presently existment, present your presently body. So now the third and the fourth both are come about because the appropriate aggregates are linked with the dysfunctional tendency towards two types of suffering. So here it just shows that the fourth and third and fourth, it just shows that this like a vessel for the suffering of change and vessel for suffering of conditionality, it comes under it comes under tendency of two types of suffering. It arises due to the it is due to the two types of suffering, which is suffering of suffering and suffering of change. So these two sufferings, which also as our body as we attain the body, as we attain the body body due to our afflictions and karma. So we always have a tendency, we always go under these two suffering because of the because we attain the life through the affliction and karma. So we are facing under these two suffering. It's the suffering of suffering and suffering of change. So the third and fourth comes about because the appropriate aggregates are linked with the dysfunctional tendency towards two suffering. So it goes towards the tendency towards the two types of suffering, because these two vessels, like these two, where the aggregates of feeling and aggregates of perception, it causes it is considered as a suffering and suffering of change. It is because it having the dysfunctional tendency. It is having okay the okay it is linked because it is linked to the dysfunctional tendency towards the two types of suffering, which is because it is connected to the two types of suffering, which is suffering of suffering and suffering of change. And as why we have to face these two types of suffering is because our body, our aggregates, not a body, our aggregates, our five aggregates, five appropriate aggregates, we attain five appropriate aggregates due to our karmas and affliction. That is the reason. And now it comes to the fifth one. As regards to the fifth one, the very existence of appropriate aggregate constitute the nature of suffering or conditionality, because all the compositional factor which depends on the previous karmas and affliction are suffering of conditionality. Because one has to take one attain one got the very existence or our existence of these aggregates. Our appropriate aggregates are due to existence due to the due to our previous karmas and affliction. We started to have these five aggregates because of our previous karmas and due to affliction. So that's why the fifth one, the vessel of suffering of conditional, is like we are having the nature of as we are having this such a appropriate aggregate. So we are having the nature of the conditionality. It is like we always have a nature of a suffering of conditionality, because all the compositional factor which depend on previous karmas and affliction are source of suffering of conditionality. So if a person or if anyone who got these five aggregates through the karmas and its affliction, then he or she has to go under the nature of the suffering of conditionality due to its because of its previous karmas and affliction. So this will be explained in detail in a section of three sufferings. So these points will be these points of the suffering of conditionality, and these points of suffering will be explained detail in the next, when it comes to the concept of three suffering. It will explain. Now Angela Sasso.
Neleji Pumbu Ranginji Koala, so Nemaji Ashena, Papa Teneja Lona, Nema Shesa Meji. Senja Koa Chambala, Niji Chamboyan, Sheta Mebe, Tapa Checho Kandu, Jucho, Samba de Hindu Kicho, Satan de Jutsugaba Chembe, Madon Jonor. Don't call it Jores and a Korea Dunhe Sansu Mobodoa, Te None, Tangara Zungo Nadu Dunhe, Dunhe da Lapa Nadu Dunhe, you are the Tundru Tag Hakora, Dunhe Dunhe. Tana Yigin Ju Dunhe Satea, Shirapatesa Hako to Gor, Yabanjo to Gor. 다 차반 되제 동해게 마우치 대치 가고 싶으시래. 알아서 이제 대요라게 다지 시보다 zam보다 야보다 대시다 person soba tsewa yon soba tele ya ani shen ton te dumhe ge rang yin te ni cha mi hi ba te che dam mun du ken ndo du na te ni che dumhe tang che ge yima dumhe tang che ge tsawa dumhe tang che ge ne o ta te ton tu kur ta te pe ka le ka ba yor nje te ngara zu du ju yon da ge ya po zambu na person soba gasa te tang che le ya ni hyamba lo go ndo ko ta te 이 차반 되지 동해를 양해만 주세 때 내려지 분별 장기 주 과라 이쇼 내마치 시도 그래서 대마시 바이는 나는 지겨 말 가르사나 동해지 동해의 된지가 동그래서 어때 내마치 마셔 타바더니 로나 내마시 삼매지스 다 코와 시기 장기 내려지 분보 차반 되지 동해기 레야쇼 내마치 telea nyepa njungwa sengi tini nyepa jinju matu bayina teni taba tenegi lo pisong tsoba sananda lo na nema sananda lo na ngoma chi she tugu mare es te ma she bayina senchen kowa chamba las roa ridu ki senchen na kowa kwande ba tela hiji chamba ya sheta mebe es ata rangi tendo ngenjung chi ngenjung pida chi she matu bayina yen senchen le ya ani hiji chamba she chen tugu mare es oteso sheta mebes tepa chechu kanto juja samba de hindu kiche wos ata koyi ge rangyin ne koyi ge shen koa le ye nyaban ju ge samba de ne tepa chenbi ge chulin ju nanda tepa mibi ge chulin ju nanda samba de hajang ge kiche bure se wa te song ro te samba de hindu kiche wos ata tiba chi ju na
So here it is mentioned that now this now Lama Tsongkhapa after these 5 points, Lama Tsongkhapa has summarized all these points by mentioning that if you do not cultivate a genuine sense of disentanglement, entanglement with the cyclic existence, the nature of which is appropriate aggregates, you will have no chance to develop a genuine mind intent on liberation, and there will be no way for you to develop a great compassion for all the living beings wandering through the cyclic existence. So here it is mentioned that Lama Tsongkhapa has mentioned, summarize that, summarize all these points, and how he summarizes. Okay, even this, the thing is like when an individual having a like physical pain, like pain of pain in the body, or having pain in the body, or having some ill or ill or having pain in the body, that can be felt by the animal, and even the animals can know about it. And in terms of the suffering of change, like suffering or change can be understood by the non-Buddhist scholars. Non-Buddhist scholars can understand it. But in terms of suffering of conditionality, so in terms of suffering of conditionality, which is very important point, which is said that you have to renounce, or you have to disentach from, or you have to detach from all the things, where everything, whether it is a pleasant, which is giving a mundane pleasant, or which all the things which is a material, which give you a material pleasant or material sadness, you have to like you have to renunciate all these things, and to consider all this as a nature of suffering, and we have to renunciate all these things, and we like we the things which once we are attached to, or once we love these things. So in terms this is a concept when it comes to the suffering of it comes under the suffering of conditionality. So here it is like one of the things about like where nature of the samsara, and samsara as a nature of samsara as a suffering, and think of the suffering of conditionality. If one cannot think about the suffering of conditionality, then one cannot able to develop a genuine genuine intent of mind, genuine mind intent towards the liberation. One cannot able to develop a genuine intention of liberation. And when one cannot able to develop a genuine intention of liberation, one cannot able to develop the great compassion towards the all the sentient beings, all the sentient beings, or all the living beings, they cannot able to develop a great compassion, and continues to circle around, or continues to wander inside the cyclic existence or samsara. One will start to continuously go under this. So hence this reflection is extremely important regardless of which vehicle, Mahayana or Hinayan, you enter. Okay, so it is said that gila khaju padu suna na tanda thekpa chya de thekpa member che an dibadu re ragila
Pachecho, Gantunjo, Samba de Hindu Kicho, Setibater.
on dibadu re ragila. Okay, so so here this it is mentioned that this reflection, this thinking about this thing, the concept of thinking about like thinking of a suffering or conditionality, all this suffering, which is the main is the suffering, main concept is suffering conditionality, all these things. Here it is that. And this reflection is where the suffering of the thinking about suffering of conditionality is very important, because regardless of whichever vehicle you're, whether you are following the Mahayana path or Hinayan path, whether you are practicing a Mahayana or Hinayan path, this concept is very important for the suffering of thinking of these suffering, and especially the suffering of conditionality is a very considered a very important part for the individual. Now,
Oh, that Chuchu Chongri in some.
okay, so we have the time is already over, so Kishla will like stop this session here.
Okay, thank you, Gichila. So now we will do the dedication. Prayers of the teachings. This ground is anointed with perfume, strewn with flowers, Mount Meru, the four continents, sun and moon. Visualizing as a Buddha feel, I offer it so that all beings may enjoy this pure realm. Idam Guru Ratna Madham Niyatayami. Dedication prayer, long life prayer of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. In the Stony Mountain Paradise, you are the source of good and happiness. Powerful tending Gyatso Chain regime, may you stay until samsara ends. Praying for our teachers' perfect health, praying for our teachers' ages life, praying that our works will go and spread. Bless me never to depart from them. This is myriad, may I soon attain the nice of Guru Buddha, so that I may be able to be all beings within friend and state. May the precious Buddha mind not yet bound or icicle, may that bond have no decline, be increased forevermore. Just as blessed Buddha is a past dedicated, just as blessed Buddha present is existing is dedicated, just as blessed Buddha future dedicated. I also humbly learn, follow and dedicate likewise. In regions when the supreme precious Dharma has not spread, or it has spread but then declined, may I diminish that treasure of happiness and benefit with a mind deeply moved by great compassion. May anyone who hear me merely sees, hear, remembers or touches or talks to me, be free in that very instant from all suffering and abide in happiness forever. For as long as space endures and for as long as living beings remain, until then, may I too abide to dispel the misery of the world. May I be a protector of those without one, a guide for all travelers on the way. May I be a bridge, a boat, and a ship for all those who wish to cross the waters. O Venerable Compassionate Guru, receive our blessing that all coming debts, obstacles, and suffering of one century, may that exception ripen upon us right now, and we give a happiness and virtue to others, and thereby invest all beings in bliss. Okay, Menkila, can I have a request?
Yes. Yeah,
The
sure.
in the commentary was said that the Lama Tsongkhapa say that follows scriptures
Follows. Yeah.
and authoritative commentaries that seek an exact understanding of them. Can you ask Geshe-la what kind of what authoritative commentaries can we actually read up on to actually have a flawless understanding of this suffering,
Okay.
especially the suffering of the aggregates?
Okay. So, what are the commentaries or scriptures you have to follow? So, you're asking the question of this one, or
Yes, there's the authoritative commentaries that we can follow, commentaries
okay,
especially.
okay. Follow the follows. Okay, gila. Tanda di tanda nga tebo chu khandu ju kya samba di shindu ke cheo lan sungda gila. Digi wade tekewa ya tima mi be sungrab da gongde sindi gi ji su tang kwa namta tsel de lan de chik sungda gila. Ani khunju gi tiwa di dire shara. Tekewa de tanda nga ju gi tanda di ju tekewa de ani tima mi be sungrab da gongde sindi ji gi ji su tang go lan sungda. Ani khunju gi keche dire shara tiwa dire 숭럽의 공대 친데 칸데로 지고나 다 칸데로 지나 길라 아니 지시지 캐나다 사야나 대빈데로 있다거든요.
Last one. Tandagi Koa Shetang, Koshile Dunga Rangi Tonwala, Ninju Tonwala Sata, Ninju Shavala, Ninju Namba Tabaji Shavala, Tene Sora, Jama maybe Sora Sata, Tasanji Jonden de Gisonre, Gondre Sate, Gondre Sedente, Tapelena, Shanchu, Langi Tabatani, Jaga Kibi Suncheva, Tome Kuche Gisora, and then Gobu Ruyo Se Gisora, Tetsu Gondre Sedere. Ota tseden titsu gi jason rane teni kowa shetan shedage ta kowa dunghe kande yimi ota kowa arata gres te tole ne tapa tene se pele na nandre lo nepa tapa te chayor nandre lo nepa le ya teni demba ye je he jeba he yora o tendre sonsa te tabu chi le ya ane hojon che ne ne kowa namba ta tsi sa ta ndo dina lauri hojon che ba ina ta ra jama me bi gis gondre chande o gondre tele ya kowa nanda chi tsi ne ane te to ne tambul te sang te ba che tene sangure se te so
That's okay. That's okay. Okay, so here in this section, when you are mentioning about the okay, where is this section? Okay. Okay. In terms of the concept of like, in terms, even when you have developed an open sense of disengagement with cyclic existence, the follow scriptures and authoritative commentaries and seek an exact understanding of them. Kishla has mentioned that, okay, in terms of here, this, the concept of like disengagement with the cyclic existence, the main concept is here is mentioning about the concept of liberation, renouncing the cyclic existence and concept of liberation. So for the like attainment or for getting the proper intention or genuine intention of liberation for one individual to attain such thing, so the concept of flawless scriptures here means the scripture means the text of the Buddha, the sutras of Buddhas, and now the authoritative commentary here it is mentioned. The authoritative commentaries means that these are the commentaries by the either by the Indian scholars or Tibetan scholars on the Buddhist scriptures, sutras. So they are like in terms of Tibetan, like right now we are having Lamrim, the path to enlightenment, which Geshe-la is giving teachings. This is the path to enlightenment. This text is there, authoritative commentary. And then in terms of like there's a teachings or texts of the Nagarjuna, Arya Nagarjuna and Arya Chandrakriti, and then there was also Indian scholar like Arya Asanka and Vasubandhu. Their texts one can study or seek the exact meaning and exact understanding of how to liberate or renounce, how to attain liberation or renunciation for samsara existence. So in terms of understanding proper understanding of the sense of disentangment with the cyclic existence, or proper understanding of the suffering of cyclic existence. One, for example, Geshe-la given that there's a one chapter in Pramana. There's a one text by Acharya Dharmakirti Pramanavartik, and in the second chapter there's a second chapter called Pramana Siddhi. So in this chapter, there's a concept of there's a detailed study on a Four Noble Truth. Four Noble Truth, there was a detailed study as mentioned, logical analysis has done, not only that it is giving a teaching, but it's a like proper logical analysis has done on the Four Noble Truth. So where it is shown the proper methods or like a detailed study on the attaining or the liberation. So one can study on these things, and in terms like here we also have a like one can study in terms of Tibetan text. One can study this text, Lamrim, the path to enlightenment. One can study on these things so that one can attain a proper or exact understanding of the all the suffering and the renunciating from those cyclic existence or suffering. Yeah, I hope is it you have is it clarify your answer, or
Okay,
shall
okay.
I?
I think in some way is good because in that sense I can refer to Pamana Vatika second chapter
Yeah,
for more.
second chapter, Pramana Siddhi, in terms of the Indian scholar, or Geshe-la, in terms of, Geshe-la has mentioned in terms of Lamrim in a Tibetan, Lamrim section, though the Lamrim we just started with right now we are going only in the initial one. So in the future, they're like, it is already mentioned in that the paragraph that this will explain in detail in the section of the three suffering, where you can see it, they're written. So it is in the future, comes about the concept of liberation and all these three suffering and come in a future section when the Lamrim class will go like when it started to go more, then it comes in a future other section, it will comes about the three suffering and all these things.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeshila want to do the dedication now.
Now, gila angwa china digire song song. Tuchina ang song song. That's it.
That's it. Da ye lima ye zong zong je di wang ye zong je, de je me de zong zong, ju zong che ge chuo che ba le ye zong ne na ma ye dong fin chuo song. Tu jiang ge ye ne da la xin che lo du su ye nang ge re, men de la ge ne ya da ya, me da ge che ne sa bi ge wan de ten dong zhuo wa jun la kang pe da che ba ji zi lo zong zhong. Den ben nian bo ren se je shuo den na ji zi la ma tu je che ya ma zhong zhe yi di zhe dong, ma le da 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 la mi ba da da ge de ge ge na dong. Rogi de la demba shenja la, tena jitsa lama tuje che, ma ju ju diri dunga, ma li tata dala mi ba tanga, dagi degi yana tanga. Rogi de la demba shenja la, tena jitsa lama tuje, ma ju ju diri dunga kaya, ma li tata dala mi ba, dagi degi yana tanga. Rogi de la demba shenja la, kanso shego ma li tuje, xie cang zhu dehi su je, mi chu nilen pen pa tuje, zobi pa shen zo, 新界老抗战这一股一听我说平常的我马林西里生活定的小别身体把都定就去跑马三界当去得到定就年着当去到上去三八光能诉求得到经济没帮助去上去社交上不去马些把那些小别那么过年光陪娃说当把老那没比当把等9万的那没挣9万的我们现在当本子没着着哦呀。Also,
La.
Okay, thank you,
oh,
Yeshila.
also,
Gila ma pena positichi.
also.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you, Mikila. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, we will end the session now. Thank you very much, everyone.